Lord Vishnu is present in the homes and working spaces and environs of millions of Hindus. He may be couched in royal splendor in the form of this mystical black river fossil, or he may be present in one of his heroic and colorful incarnations, such as Rama or Krishna or the terrible man-lion or a host of others. He has 1,000 names and 1,000 stories to be told. The name Vishnu and a part of his story are found in the Rig Veda at the earliest level of Vedic religion. But many of his names and the greater part of the myths, rites, and symbols associated with Vishnu and with the Vaishnavas who are his devotees are found outside of the Vedic tradition, in the epics and the Puranas, in myths and cults from all parts of India. Like Shiva and the goddess, the other two figures who structure classical and modern Hindu theism, Vishnu thus represents a profound amalgamation, a multi-layered amalgamation of the Indo-Aryan speakers' traditions and the traditions of the indigenous non-Brahmanical peoples. On the Vedic side, Vishnu is most remembered for his 3 strides across earth, mid-space, and heaven, or across earth, heaven, and the transcendent beyond. For he is the pervader, as his name indicates, and he is also closely connected with Vedic sacrifice. On the indigenous, non-Brahmanical side of this merger, or more accurately, series of mergers that results eventually in Vishnu as we know him today, there is less coherence, less articulation in the evidence. And we must therefore presume certain cults that lay behind the establishment of Vishnu as supreme being in later texts. For example, there is the Bhagavad Gita, the classical text of the 1st and 2nd centuries AD that is incorporated into the Mahabharata. This is the chief expression of a sect known as the Bhagavatas, those who worshipped Bhagavat or Lord Vishnu. This arose perhaps in the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC. Another local clan deity was Vasudeva, and he was elevated from his status to that of a supreme being in the same area of North India, Mathura in the middle of North India, and from there his cult spread to the west and to the south of India, and his origins are equally vague and obscure. Yet a third local deity who was identified with Vishnu was Narayana, and a sect arose known as the Pancharatras, which became merged with both the worshippers of Vasudeva and with the Bhagavatas. The Pancharatras have a doctrine known as the Vyuhas, or emanations of Lord Vishnu, a series of 5 emanations that correspond to the 5 regions of the macrocosmos and the 5 aspects of the human microcosmos. Still another early name of Vishnu is Hari, a name that has survived across the centuries of Vaishnava tradition. Now, if there is any single thread linking all of these disparate myths and cults to a single figure, it is the theme of a hero who rescues a world threatened by chaos. Vishnu is the preserver, and it is he who preserves the dharma, the sacred moral cosmic order, and abolishes adharma, all that threatens, all unrighteousness, immorality, chaotic forces. The Bhagavad Gita has Vishnu explain why he manifests portions of himself from time to time. Whenever there is a decline of righteousness and a rise of unrighteousness, then I send forth myself for the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of righteousness. I come into being from age to age. From age to age, this brings us into a post-Vedic concept of the yugas, of the successive ages in a degenerating scale. For as Rousseau once observed, everything is perfect when it leaves the hands of a creator. Everything degenerates in the hands of man. And history has a way of being exhausted. Time has a way of being exhausted. And Lord Vishnu is the remedy, arriving periodically to save the world from chaos. In a 7th century AD representation of Lord Vishnu, we find him reclining on the endless cosmic serpent stretched out upon the coils. And bowing in adoration at his knees is the goddess Lakshmi, or Shri, Vishnu's traditional consort. There are also standing representations, either unadorned or in the later iconography with his traditional emblems, his discus as a weapon, his mace, his conch, and his lotus. Vishnu has an animal vehicle, as other Hindu gods do, and this is the Garuda bird upon which he flies. In the Vedas, Garuda is an eagle connected with the sun and with the Soma cult. In the epics, he is either a hawk or a kite. Between the 4th and the 6th centuries AD, the Gupta period of North India, there came the development of fine sculptural representations of Vishnu and temple architecture that replaced wooden with stone buildings. Here at Deogar, there is this relief upon the south wall, the extraordinary concept here of Lord Vishnu, of God asleep. Here he represents the pre-formal, the pre-creation, unmanifest God, like the god Purusha of the Rig Veda with whom he is associated. In this dream state, the unmanifest God lies sleeping. The door on the west side of the building allows the devotee to enter and worship the image of Lord Vishnu here with the figures about the door jamb, while on the west side of the building, another relief represents Narayana, the Himalayan sage we mentioned who saw or intuited the Purusha Sukta, who performed a 5-day sacrifice and became God. And he is discussing here with Nara, man, who in some myths is a twin manifestation of Vishnu himself. And on the north side of the building is another popular representation of Vishnu, here rescuing the elephant from serpents that have trapped him in a lake. And Vishnu arriving on Garuda intimidates the Nagas, as we see here in a South Indian relief sculpture of the same motif. The V-shaped sectarian mark of the Vaishnavas is a mark of devotion. One has placed his foot, God's foot, upon one's own head as a mark of subservience. The adoration of these figures of Vishnu, this one a colossal statue from the 5th century, goes on today, the adoration of the local peasants. But a variety of folk traditions survives in the iconography of Vishnu, as we may see here in the Shalagrama, a stone-like black river fossil, which is the very essence of Vishnu himself, and which is often worshipped by the devotee in his home. Devotion to Lord Vishnu takes many forms. In the 11th book of the Bhagavad Gita is the famous theophany of Vishnu to the warrior Arjuna, one reminiscent of Isaiah standing in wonder and terror before the Lord of hosts. Arjuna is struck with wonder at the sight of Vishnu as he really is, filled with the brilliance of 1,000 suns and seated on a lotus throne high in the sky with the entire universe encompassed in his body. And Arjuna cries out in terror, "Who can comprehend him?" Now, balancing this transcendent otherness of God is the presence of Vishnu as a personal, loving, immanent God, one whose benevolent grace comes to affirm this existence for man. And one of the great theologians of South India in the 11th and 12th centuries was Ramanuja, who developed a qualified monism as the philosophical expression of the Sri Vaishnava sect in South India. And he understood Brahman, or God, as a limitless being, at the same time one with whom an individual who achieves salvation may unite. In the 14th century, there developed a split between two sects of the Sri Vaishnavas, one understanding salvation to be a cooperative grace in which man achieves by his own efforts some part of salvation. Holding on to the mother monkey is the illustration that is used as the mother springs to safety, whereas the other school understood grace to be irresistible, totally that of God, with no effort on man's part, the image being the mother cat who picks up her kitten by her teeth and takes it to salvation. Another expression of the benevolent grace of Vishnu is found in the concept of the avatars, a classical list of 10 descents or incarnations of Lord Vishnu, although some Puranas maintain longer lists. For instance, there is the figure of Matsya, the fish incarnation of Vishnu, at a time when a great flood submerges the earth. There is also the incarnation or avatara of Vishnu as Kurma, as the tortoise, connected with the motif of the churning of the ocean. And a third dilemma, which is saved by Vishnu, occurs when he incarnates himself as Varaha, the great cosmic boar, one of the most widely represented in classical Hindu iconography. He is a good illustration of the assimilation of indigenous myths and cults into the ostensibly Sanskritic Vaishnava tradition, so that the ancient cosmogonic motif of the earth diver and the ancient cult of the sacred pig or boar are both retained in this incarnation of Vishnu. Having dispatched a threatening demon by diving to the bottom of the cosmic ocean, Varaha has rescued and brought up on one of his great tusks the goddess Earth, Bahu. And he is seen here on all fours as well as in his standing position. Unlike Lord Shiva, who seems to have as many fearful and demonic aspects as gracious and benign ones, Vishnu is always regarded as benevolent. There is one monstrous avatara, Narasimha, one who is half man and half lion. And this curious mixture came about when a clever demon extracted a boon from God Brahma that no weapon could harm him, that he could not be killed by man or beast, by day or night, inside or outside. And Vishnu thus dispatched this troublesome demon by his own hands, appearing as a man-lion at twilight on the threshold. And we see here a devotee beside this monolithic 16th century Narasimha. Other avatars include the dwarf Vamana that we see here on the right, one who recapitulates Vedic Vishnu's 3 great strides across the cosmos in a ruse to defeat still another demon whose power is out of control. Parashurama, or Rama with the axe, who is a prototypical Brahmana and is involved in the struggle for power between Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Even the Buddha is an avatara. Just as the Buddhists co-opted several Hindu gods, like Indra, said to have become a Buddhist convert, so did the Vaishnava tradition co-opt Lord Buddha himself, making him just another incarnation of Vishnu. And there is the 10th and last avatara to come, Kalkin, the descent of Vishnu that will come in the millennium, an eschatological warrior figure, sometimes depicted on a white horse with a flaming sword in his hand, who will finally destroy evil and bring the millennial judgment day. His counterpart in Buddhist mythology is Maitreya. I have saved 2 of the classical 10 incarnations for last, as each of these 2 shines as a major deity in his own right, with vast numbers of devotees throughout India. They are, of course, Lord Rama, the great hero of the epic Ramayana, and Lord Krishna, the many-faceted deity of the Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas, and vernacular devotional poetry of the medieval period. Let us turn first to Rama, who is also known as Ramachandra, shown here with an arrow in one hand, a bow in the other, and his crown or tiara on his head. In the medieval period, Rama is established as a deity in his own right, the personification of virtue and the Brahmanical code, the physical as well as the moral ideal for Hindu man. His consort is Sita, the heroine of the epic Ramayana, and she too is the model of virtue and physical perfection. The story of the Ramayana is told throughout India in sculptures, such as this relief panel at Somnathpur, and in paintings and in dramatizations. The Rama Lila is the acting out of the entire story of the Ramayana, and in this case it is the Hindi version of Tulsidas, the Ramacharita-manas, which takes place in many parts of India for as much as 2 weeks, with large parts of the drama acted every day, including these great puppets that are moved about, and finally in the last part of the drama, after the rescue of Sita from the 10-headed demon Ravana that we see here in the center of the painting, the great figures of the dramatizations are set on fire. There are also recitations of the Ramayana in its Sanskrit version, such as this one, which takes place for 9 days, with every verse of the epic accompanied by an offering of grains into this star-shaped fire. Throughout India, there are temples to Lord Rama, and we have here an illustration of the transition from the Vedic sacrifice, the yajna, to the forms of Deva Puja, of worship of a god who is installed in the temple in image form. We have mentioned the Sri Vaishnavas and the 5 modes of Vishnu's being, and these range from the absolute one without attributes down to the tangible established image, who receives here reverent attentions or upacharas. He is fed, he is clothed, he is washed, he is put to sleep. All these attentions given to him as the deity in the temple. Another figure of the Ramayana, an important figure, is Hanuman, who has a growing cult of his own in various parts of India, the monkey ally of Lord Rama in the rescue of Sita. And here in a shrine, we have Hanuman recognized. Elsewhere, there are images of a primitive, of a crude form under trees, with Hanuman with his club. And these are the bodybuilders, those who exercise with weights and worship Hanuman, who is here in the image behind. The last of these incarnations or avatars is Lord Krishna, who is an extraordinary figure in his own right, as a mischievous child, as a son, as a great hero, a prince, a warrior, a father, an elder brother, and of course as the lover. And all of these figures unite in the form of Lord Krishna. He is shown here in his heroic form in this medieval painting, saving the river maidens from the serpent demon. Another of his episodes is the salvation of the cowherds with whom he is associated in his pastoral form by holding up the mountain to shield them from a storm. Or here he swallows a forest fire which threatens the cowherds. His mischievous nature, as well as stealing the butter from his mother's pantry, comes out in his stealing here of the gopis, the cowgirls' clothes, and forcing them to come naked before him, presenting themselves before God as they are. But he is best known, perhaps, in his role as the cowherd playing his flute out in the pastures or in the wilderness. And the sculptural as well as the painting representations of Krishna's fluting are many. Here he has fascinated the cows. Here he has brought the cows back into the village in the painting known as the Hour of Cow Dust. In the evening, when the cows and the cow herds return and Krishna plays his flute. The episode is recorded in the Bhagavata Purana. And in the 10th book, we have in this 10th century South Indian text the passionate love play of Krishna and the gopis. For his flute lures them out from their homes, from their husbands and families and children, to a rendezvous with Krishna to dance in the forest by the riverside. But all is not well in this story as the gopis suddenly discover the absence of Krishna and begin to lament and mourn and search for him to act out the episodes of Krishna's life. And eventually they discover that he is off with one of the gopis alone, and they are extremely jealous of the possession of Krishna by one. Each of them, however, understands that this involvement with Krishna is taking place in her own heart. Another text is the Gita Govinda, which establishes the identity of this privileged girl as Radha. And the paintings take up the themes of Krishna and Radha in all of the bliss and the agony of their love affair, representing the bliss and the agony of man in search for union with God. And here Radha is in the experience of the absence of Krishna. For as well as sambhoga, the union, the bliss, there is viraha, the agony, the deprivation of the lover. She also experiences the jealousy of knowing that Krishna is with other girls. She is told here by her confidant to go and seek him out and to resume their delightful love play. But all is not well, as we see here that when Krishna and Radha are together, jealousy and anger intervenes, and Krishna is spurned by his consort. Eventually, however, there is the bliss of sambhoga, of union, and all of this is detailed in the poetry, in the painting, in music, as one of the great themes of Hindu devotional theism. All of this is the mystery that takes place in the heart of man as he recognizes the unity of his soul with that of the Absolute. This is also dramatized in various festivals, such as the Dola Yatra, taking place here in the city of Benares, as thousands of people come out into the streets, go into the temples to worship and to look at the images of Krishna and Radha who are rocking gently in this swing or bed made of silver. The festival brings people out to swing themselves in what is literally the swinging festival, Dola Yatra. Great Ferris wheels are made that are hand-propelled, and the people ride in other contraptions that demonstrate this union of Radha and Krishna. There are many great pilgrimage centers of the Vaishnava tradition. One of the greatest is at Sri Rangam, a temple in Tamil Nadu, the temple where Ramanuja himself, 800 years ago, was the chief pujari, the head priest. This is the Ranganatha temple of Lord Vishnu, and every day in the afternoon there is the procession out from the temple with the image of Lord Vishnu here under the canopy, borne on the backs of a number of devotees, followed by the numerous priests of the temple, preceded by elephants and drums and musicians, torchbearers. And finally the image is brought out into the open for a moment before it is placed for its afternoon rest. Devotees clasping their hands in adoration before him. Another area of temples, this one from the medieval period, is at Khajuraho. And here are great temples that were built by the Rajputs in the 10th and 11th centuries, some 85 of them, of which 20 survive today, temples to Shiva and to the Jaina saints, as well as to Vishnu and other Vaishnava deities. We can well imagine the traditions of medieval India as people came here singing the devotional songs in praise of Vishnu, coming to worship the murtis, the images that reside in each of these great cosmic mountains that become the temples of God Vishnu. The Khajuraho temples are famous for their wealth of sculpture, much of it erotic art, passionate evocations of the joy of this life. The pilgrim devotee circumambulates each temple and then goes into the entrance up the steps and progresses into a series of halls, into this mystical universe, this magical diagram or mandala, which is the temple itself. The temple plan shown here reveals the entrance to the right, and one proceeds through a series of halls to the hall of the god, these being offering halls, assembly halls, sometimes even dancing halls, called mandapas. Before one reaches what is at the left of this temple plan, the Garbha Griha, the house of the deity, literally the embryo inside this cosmic mountain. And it is here that Lord Vishnu resides. And the eyes adjust in the darkness, and the murti, the image, emerges glowing. The central shrine of the temples is always in orientation to the four quarters. The image at the navel of the cosmic space, the devotee approaching from east to west with the north on his right hand. We have seen then that Vishnu is this remarkable figure who has drawn to himself and assimilated so much of Hindu expression. A marvelous balance is provided in Hindu theism, with Shiva, the cosmic, ascetic, wild, terrible, unpredictable side to divinity, Vishnu, the social, life-affirming, benevolent one, offering grace and assurance to his devotees. From age to age he has descended, and yet as pervader of the three worlds, the devotee knows his omnipresence. The medieval poet wrote, "I do not know how I can meet the Lord. He came into my courtyard, then he left. I knew this only after he had gone, watching the road, the night passed, the day passed, watching. Hari did come into my yard, but I, unlucky one, was sleeping. My anguished heart is on fire in separation from him.